Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. Well, this is a terrible budget from a busted flush government. And I know we've heard from the other side, give them another chance, the new Tory dynamic duo of Rishi and Jezza. And they certainly do talk the talk, don't they, on growth, inflation, debt, the NHS, but do they walk the walk? And the answer is no, because on growth, of course, we've seen stagnant growth for 13 years, no real prospect of it being any better than the worst in the G7 in the future year. Compare that with the Labour government. In 10 years, we saw the economy grow by 40%, and we used the money to double the investment in health, double the investment in education, lift 1 million children out of poverty, lift 1 million pensioners out of poverty. And we, with that level of growth, that trend growth, we'd have been £11,000 off better off in terms of average wages. Now, the Prime Minister said, well, that's not my fault. But I mean, a lot of this time when we've seen this decay and mismanagement, of course, he was Chancellor. What about debt? Since the last Labour government, debt as a share of the economy has doubled from 45% of the economy to 90% of the economy. It's an appalling record, an indictment of their failed austerity platform. And inflation, the ambition of the government is to halve inflation from 10% to 5%. Well, the forecasts say it's going to be 3%, so it shouldn't be that difficult. And people seem to think that this will reduce prices. Well, if you get 10%, then 5%, prices will have gone up 15%. And if DVLA workers from Swansea are being offered by this government 2%, a 13% pay cut, it's no wonder they're on strike. And this government is busy causing strikes left, right and centre. If the RMT bid of 7% originally, before they went on strike, had been accepted, we wouldn't be in a position now where they deservedly, in fact, get 14%. So we've had this disruption and chaos due to Tory mismanagement because they won't negotiate and they'll just create strikes. We're told you've got to live within your means. Well, that's all very well for the Chancellor, who's a millionaire, or indeed for the Prime Minister, who's a billionaire. He's, of course, got his hedge fund, Theleme, that appreciated from 7 billion to 39 billion after the government decided to buy Moderna vaccine, when the then Health Secretary, who's now making money in the jungle, decided to recommend that. And what about waiting lists? Waiting lists of 7 million people. Are we going to get those down with this government? So we know that treating someone with low nourishment is something like £7,000 compared to £2,000 for someone who's properly fed. And yet in Britain today, 1 in 4 people are in food poverty. So the inequality we've seen created by this government is making the health service better, not worse. And the £1 billion they put into pension funds won't make that better. And the workers are being blamed, of course, for inciting pay demands, but wage growth is in fact down now year on year from 6% to 5.7% at a time that inflation's well over that. And who else is going to pay? Of course, homeowners have got to pay. They're going to have to help bring down inflation. How? By bringing down the price of houses by 8%. So new homeowners will see mortgages double or triple from 2 to 6% at a time the value of their houses are going down. And they're supposed to be the growth creators of the future. The Bank of England base rates have actually gone from 0.1% in November 21 to 4% now. The economy has gone out of control under Tory mismanagement. And what about businesses? They talk about businesses, but we're now at record insolvencies. Insolvencies are up 30% since 2020. The material prices going, energy prices going up, borrowing costs going up, weak demand, so businesses are struggling. What about R&D? We heard about R&D in this debate, and I mentioned in Wales 1,000 university staff are being sacked who are at the cutting edge of developing green growth initiatives, because the promise of not a penny less after the withdrawal of EU structural funding has been broken by this government. And we're talking about innovating projects to turn waste plastic into nanocarbon tubes for electric vehicles. We're getting steel slag heaps and converting them back into raw materials like iron ore. We're talking about cladding, working with Tata Steel, which stores energy in terms of solar energy as well as absorbs it. In terms of infrastructure, certainly from Wales, we've had 1.5% of our share of rail enhancement for decades. We're not even getting our 5% of HS2. In terms of profiteering, we've seen, of course, the oil companies and the retail companies making a profit out of the Ukraine war and the pandemic, respectively. We've seen natural monopolies like the water companies profiteering. It's not good enough. The Tories are saying, trust us again, after the inflation, after the debt, after the lack of growth, after 1 in 4 in poverty, after a cut to 15% in trade. No, no, no. We want a stronger, fairer, greener future, and that will only come with a Labour government. So let's have an election, put the country out of its misery, and build a better future with a Labour Party. Yeah.